Welcome to episode 1 of Into Action, brought to you by Touchstone Recovery Center. Today we talk to Kenny Ellebracht, our lead behavioral health technician at our residential treatment center. He's an alumni and he's a good friend of mine. Let's get into it. Getting to know Kenny has been a pleasure over the last few years, and I know that things can change pretty quickly for us when we're in our recovery. And from day one that we first met to today, well over 2 years later, it's like a different person sitting in front of me. Welcome, Kenny. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Nolan.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. Talking about the process and the way that we go from day one to day 400 or 500 of our friendship, and as you've progressed in your recovery, I've gotten to know you pretty well. But there's a lot of things that I think are important about your journey. I think like knowing what the catalyst was that got you into treatment and got you engaged in your recovery would be really important for us to all know.
All right. So I'll start with I became an addict and alcoholic at a young age. I went through early 20s where I knew something was off with me. I went to treatment, though, back in 1998 to pacify my parents. I needed a place to live when I was discharged from the military. So I learned a little bit in there, but like the disease of addiction, I truly thought I was just too immature. I turned 21 in rehab. So the lies like I told myself was one day I'll be able to drink like a normal person. Fast forward to 27 years old, and I broke my back. I broke my back on a dirt bike accident, and I got hooked on pain pills. At the time, I was still battling with alcohol, where I could get 3 months of sobriety on my own, up to 6 months at the time.
Just white knuckling it?
Yes. Going to work, I put my attention fully on my family. I was married in 2000, had my first child in 2000. My second, I had my daughter in 2002. Mm-hmm. So really from 2000 to 2005, I would get basically 2 months, 3 months was the norm. Go on like a weekend bender.
Was that intentional? Or did you go to meetings? Did you have a sponsor, or did you just say I'm quitting and try to quit?
Yeah, I would basically just appease my wife. Okay. I would have a rough spell dabbling in drugs and drinking to where I wanted to quit. Yeah. I would tell myself I would never drink again, on the way to work with the hangover, and then drink again that night.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, it was something like I didn't want the best way to describe it is I already felt the negative effects alcohol and drugs were having on my life. My entire life, I always wanted to be married and have children of my own, and a career, and I had all of that at the time. So trying to maintain the career, the family, and be a good father, alcohol and drugs were really like taken away from that.
Yeah. So how quickly after you hurt your back did you find that you were addicted to the opiates? I'm assuming they were opiates they prescribed you.
Yeah. So I knew. So this is how it went. I had emergency surgery. I declined all medication after surgery because I was still living a little bit of a lie. Because when I broke my back, I had relapsed the night before. So I had 6 months of sobriety. I drank. Nobody knew I drank. The next morning, I jumped my dirt bike. I made a bad decision due to the mental fog. Yeah. Just not thinking clearly with the hangover. Broke my back. Nobody knew. So
nobody knew you had relapsed?
Yep.
Okay.
So no one knew I drank. And then so I'm in surgery. I get out of surgery. I go to physical therapy, a residential physical therapy place for a week, and I declined the Norcos. Mm-hmm. I was like, nope, I'm an alcoholic. I can't have those. So I fought really from March of 2005 until November of 2007, I did not take pain pills. And then I had an orthoscopic knee surgery, and I was prescribed Norco. And when I took those, it didn't make my knee feel any better, but it made my back feel better. And instantly, it was like,
Yep.
I had just started taking them like a day, maybe 2 days into going back to work, and I wanted more.
Yeah. Yeah. With those, with especially the prescription opiates, it's, it starts off innocently usually. Like you take it for the right reasons, the doctor prescribes it, and then within a week or two, like you can't go without them. At least that was part of my story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long did you struggle with opiates before you got into treatment and tried to get sober?
So 2007 to 2019.
Damn, it's 12 years.
Yeah. So on year, I would say around year 11, it was clear to all my family that I had a problem. I went ahead and basically admitted I had a pill problem at that time. I was buying them. I had my own prescriptions, several different kinds at this point, along with buying anything and everything I could off the street.
Yep.
And I had enough money to buy them at the time. I mean, I had the money, I just couldn't find the pills. So I basically threw up a white flag and said I needed help.
Yeah. And I know, so you went to treatment in 2019.
In 2018, I went to the doctor.
Okay.
And I told the doctor I had a pill problem and told him what I was doing. So he took my prescription from me.
So then you started buying them illegally 100%
then I
of the
started
time.
using heroin.
Got it. Yeah. So when you went to treatment in 2019, because I know when I met you, it was 2021, I believe, maybe even 2020. But when I met you, you'd been to treatment a few times. You'd struggled on and off. What would you say was like? What was the turning point? Because when I saw you turn that corner and start like engaging in your recovery, and it hasn't been a like linear since then. It hasn't been perfect since the day I met you, which it isn't for any of us. Like it's always a bumpy road. Like what changed you? Like what made it to where or I guess you learned what works and what doesn't, and like I don't know I guess explain to me what your why is. Like what happened?
Yeah. So for me, I wanted a sober life. I wanted recovery. I was still confused on how to obtain it. I was starting to do better and better, meaning longer stretch of recovery or sober time in between relapses. However, there's too many. And finally, a lot of people put their foot down, and they basically said I needed to get out of town. And so I did. I went down to Orange County, and I feel like that was really instrumental, getting away from my area here in Fresno, Tulare. And then that's when I met you. I remember I wanted to come back to Fresno so bad, and I didn't know like if they were gonna let me. So for the first time in my life, I decided while I was in Orange County that I was just gonna take the suggestions. I heard rumblings that they were gonna send me to all sorts of places. I wanted to come back to Fresno, and I realized that my best decisions wind me up in a hospital or in treatment, and their best decisions were feeding me meals and loving on me in a way I didn't know how to love myself. Yeah. So I got a call saying I was going to go to Touchstone Recovery Center and talk to this guy named Nolan. And I had already heard about you from Scotty when I was at My Time. So I felt like my connection with My Time is significant as well. I really trusted Scotty. So hearing him talk about you in the past with me, I felt like I could trust you before I even met you. And then, I came down to Fresno. We had a phone call while I was down in Orange County. You sounded upbeat and positive. I told you my concerns about not just treatment, but sober living. And you assured me I had nothing to worry about, that just come down and we'll take it from there. when I met you, I remember you came out, you either gave me a hug or a high five. And
Probably both.
maybe. But it's one of those things like, for me, I'll never forget walking through the doors, meeting with you, hearing Dr. Battle's voice, someone that I had known before from treatment as well. And then meeting Alan and doing an intake with him and just sharing stories while we're doing the intake. I felt at home. Like it wasn't, I wasn't walking into a place where people were just trying to jot stuff down in a computer or a piece of paper. They were relating to me and making me feel like I was normal for the first time.
Yeah. I think a lot of treatment centers are very similar, right? At least the messages that we're conveying and like the services we offer are very similar. So, Touchstone is very similar to many other treatment facilities, except the difference is the staff. I feel like the staff is what makes a treatment center great or good or not so good. And we're pretty lucky to have staff members that have lived it. So we have that lived experience, but then we also have the background, the education that we need to help clients get better. So with that being said, you definitely have the lived experience. You've been going to classes and got your rad T, and recently, I guess not so recently, about 8 months ago, started working at Touchstone Recovery Center as now you're the lead behavioral health tech at our inpatient. What do you think your experience has brought to the table when you work with newcomers, with clients that come into the facility?
I relate to them the same way. Like the way I felt when I got to Touchstone, I feel like I relate with them. I meet them where they're at. Don't expect anything from them. Whatever they're going through, typically I've been through. And it's like it's a compassion or empathy that I don't think you can get without the experience.
Yeah. I've noticed, like in my years working in this field, it's like an advantage that we have, that it feels odd to call it an advantage, but like the trenches that we lived in for so long and like the suffering that we put ourselves and our families through, that can be used to our advantage now that we're sober, right?
Yeah.
Those are things that make us relatable to the newcomer. Those are things that make people like trust you because you've actually been there. I think that's valuable, and I think that's why you're the lead behavioral health tech, is because you're able to convey that message. What advice would you give to someone who's struggling with addiction and like needs to change their life but just doesn't know how?
To reach out for help. And the shame and guilt is, I think, the hardest to overcome. So we deal with the disease and reminding myself that there's several supporting factors that can teach me that it's a disease, because I want to believe it's not a disease. It's a disability that the state of California is willing to pay you time off work. It's got to, in order to be classified as a disease, it's got to be incurable, progressive, and deadly, and it meets all the criteria. So I try and relate to people and let them know, like, it's not a moral failing. It's something that we need to treat. The shame and guilt alone, like I said, it's what's weighed me down. I always felt like I should have done things better or different. But the one thing that I know, like, that I did perfectly is I never gave up.
Yep. Yeah, there's a saying I like that you just reminded me of. It's like, as long as you're pointed in the right direction, you can walk, right? It doesn't matter how fast you go. It doesn't matter if you fall down. As long as you're pointing in the right direction, just keep going.
Yep.
How do you stay sober these days? Like, what's your routine?
It's all over the place right now. But yeah, I pray and meditate. I meet with my sponsor. I go to an accountability men's meeting once a week. I go to the gym a lot. I love to listen to music, and I interact with. I live and manage a sober living, and I interact the best I can with the housemates and stay busy, stay active in the community, and really, like, when it comes to the rest of my life, my family, I enjoy every time I get an opportunity to show up today. And I try not to take anything for granted. And when things bother me, I try and let people know that, I'm upset or why. And usually I find out that it's my fault.
Yeah. So you work with a sponsor. You go to meetings. How often do you go to meetings? And how often do you work with your sponsor?
So right now, I meet my sponsor once a week. Usually it's the accountability men's meeting that I go to on Tuesday nights. I average 5 meetings a week. Maybe, sometimes a little bit less, but I average 5. And it's usually with other members from our sponsee group and or the Sober Living and Touchstone. The alumni, the current clients.
I think meeting with a sponsor and going to meetings is really important for a lot of us. I know that there's no one-size-fits-all way to treat addiction, and I don't think that everyone needs or everyone would buy into going to 5 meetings a week, or everyone would meet with their sponsor once a week. But I know if that's what it takes for me, I'm going to freaking do it. And if that's what it takes for you, you should keep doing it. There's a couple counselors here at Touchstone that, they don't really prescribe to the 12-step model, and it's not their favorite recovery program, and that's okay. I always try to tell people that whatever works for you is what you should do. And I damn sure know that we know what doesn't work because we're here. we're either in treatment or we work in treatment for a reason, right? So I think learning what doesn't work for you is really hard. Amen. It sucks. You lose your job, you lose your wife, you lose money, you lose your freedom. But then when you find what works for you, stick to it, just stick to it.
Yeah, I think, like you said, consistency. If my schedule, like I said, my schedule's a little bit off, but if I get out of balance, I feel it today. Yeah. And the other thing was being of service. I do have a commitment meeting to where I'm the secretary. And in early recovery, that helped me tremendously. There were times where even if I didn't want to use, I just wanted to go to check on my brother, which is in active addiction. I knew that if I went and checked on him, that I probably wouldn't make it back in time to open the doors for the meeting. So the meeting itself, I've been secretarying it for 9 months, and probably 5 times that meeting has saved me from making a bad decision and leaving town.
Yeah. We have up on the wall here at Touchstone, we have your decisions reveal your priorities, which that was one of Lewis's sayings that he picked out. But it's true, especially when we know what's not good for us. We know that hanging out with our brother or our best friend from the old days that's still using or drinking, that's not a good idea. That's a risky, high-risk situation.
Absolutely.
So, making those decisions I know I don't do it, and I have years of sobriety. I don't hang out with my brother or one of my brothers that's active in his alcoholism, or my old friends from the days when I was using it. I can't do that. I can't risk my sobriety over it. I can't risk my job, my wife, my happiness. Yeah. So it sucks because we have to cut a lot of ties, but I think it's necessary in a lot of cases.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's you hear when you get here, right? You hear the only thing that has to change is everything. I had a class the other night where I was reviewing my notes from basically 6 months ago, and I put a list together of what I needed to do to stay sober. And at the time, I'm in treatment, and it was 6 months ago, 6 months in the class, so it was about 9 months ago, okay, that I made this list. Everything that I wrote, I have done. And I was like, wow, I actually did it this time.
Yep.
I didn't just say it. I mean it when I say it, but then when life starts getting better, you forget. You forget what gave you that good life, and you kind of separate yourself from the program.
Yeah.
But no, today I do my best to stay connected, stay in the program, and keep trudging, And like you said earlier with the staff, I was thinking about on the way here. I remember when I met Lewis. I don't remember the date, but I remember where I met him and how. And I remember the date that I met Yannick. And at that time, that was the entire staff of Touchstone. And that's how impactful it was for me.
Yep. Yeah, we have good people here.
Yep.
We're lucky.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Kenny, man. I'm really glad you came by today, and I love you, buddy, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Love you too.